At the moment the Roman soldier pierces Jesus' side with a spear, an unexpected flow spills from his body, blood and water. Not just blood, not merely the residue of a violent death, but also water, a symbol of purity, fluidity, and life. This detail, seemingly odd or medical to some, holds one of the deepest spiritual keys in the entire Christ narrative. For when Christ's body bleeds water, it's not just a body bidding farewell to life. It's a portal opening to an inner revelation, a secret sealed in the silence of the ages. The scene is brief in the Gospels, but its impact is everlasting. John 19:34 notes, "However, one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water came out." Why was this detail preserved? Why did John, who often writes in symbolic language, choose to describe it with such precision? Moreover, why has this detail resonated with mystics, alchemists, and seekers for millennia? The answer lies not on the surface of the texts, but in the heart of the symbol, and in the heart of those who seek to understand it sincerely. A literal interpretation that the blood and water were simply the result of bodily fluids accumulating due to asphyxiation and extreme suffering might satisfy a rational mind. However, the soul craves something deeper. When we speak of Jesus, we're discussing a being whose entire life was a divine portrayal of inner transformation. Everything that happens to him has layers. Nothing is merely physical. Everything serves as a symbol. Every experience carries a hidden lesson. In that final moment, when there was nothing left to say, and the silence felt heavier than words, the body of Christ speaks one last time. It speaks without a voice, but through signs. The blood, a symbol of embodied life, of flesh that suffers and surrenders. The water, a symbol of purified essence, of redeemed emotion, of awakened consciousness. Together, they not only mark the end of a human existence, they herald the triumph of transformation, the birth of something new. Here we uncover the archetype of the union of opposites: blood, warm, vital and heavy; water, cold, fluid and light; the masculine and the feminine, the physical and the spiritual; suffering and liberation. When both flow together from the wounded side of Christ, we witness a vivid image of inner integration. No longer are the parts separated. Instead, we find a synthesis that gives rise to a new consciousness. The pain of the world and the light of the spirit emerge from the same wound. The one who was wounded is not destroyed. Rather, he reveals himself. For alchemists, this is no coincidence. It's a revelation. In the language of alchemy, the journey of purification and enlightenment involves confronting one's own pain, dissolving the ego, and uniting substances that, when separated, hold no power, but together awaken the inner gold. Blood and water, then, serve as the symbolic components of the elixir of transmutation. They are not merely remnants of a dying body, they are the signature of a pure spiritual process. This process isn't exclusive to Jesus. It reflects what can happen in every individual willing to confront their own struggles. When we accept our pain and let go of our ego, what flows from our wounds can also become light. It can be life, it can be liberation. Christ bleeds water to show us that we are not doomed to repeat the cycle of suffering. We can redeem ourselves, we can be reborn, we can transform. But it's essential to see with the eyes of the soul. Without that inner vision, everything will seem like mere suffering, chance, or tragedy. The message will be lost. The true secret lies in recognizing that crucifixion is not the end. It's the alchemical furnace, the stage where the old dissolves, so the new can emerge. The blood mixed with water signifies that this transmutation has taken place. That matter has been spiritualized. It shows that the word has fulfilled its mission, not just to die, but to transform. This is the true meaning of Christic blood. It's not just the blood of a martyr, it's the symbolic essence of a new humanity. It's a consciousness that arises from the fusion of pain and love, sacrifice and redemption. That blood does not cry out for vengeance. It proclaims liberation, and the water is not a final release. It's a secret baptism that occurs not at the beginning, but at the end, on the threshold between worlds. And perhaps that's why the spear pierces Jesus' side after his death, because the secret of Christ's blood cannot be revealed while there is still struggle, while there is still resistance. It only reveals itself in total surrender, in absolute letting go, at the point where we no longer try to control life, but simply become one with it. It is there that the water flows. It is there that the soul is freed. It is there that the mystery unfolds, like a flower in the desert. Ultimately, that blood and water don't just flow on the streets of Jerusalem. They continue to flow today, in the hearts of those who seek, those who suffer with purpose, and those who bravely navigate their darkest nights. Because within every human being lies a dormant Christ, and every pain faced with love is a spear that, paradoxically, sets us free. It wounds not to kill, but to reveal, to make way for the light that was once hidden. And it is in this light that we move forward, because what begins with a wound ends with a revelation. At the heart of the crucifixion narrative lies a gesture that may seem brutal at first glance, yet is profoundly symbolic. The piercing of Jesus' side with a spear. This act, carried out by a Roman soldier, is laden with meanings that extend far beyond mere physical violence. It resonates deeply with the language of archetypes, timeless patterns of transformation that permeate not only Christianity, but also the major spiritual and initiatory traditions of humanity. To grasp the depth of this moment, one must look through the eyes of the Spirit and recognize that every detail of this act plays a role in the process of Christic transmutation. The lance symbolizes an instrument for penetrating the truth. Yes, it wounds, but its injury is revealing. In many traditions, the lance represents the sword of discernment, the light that cuts through illusion. It breaks through the layers of appearance and reaches the core of reality. In the case of Jesus, the lance not only pierces his body, it unveils what was hidden: blood and water, the two great symbols of the soul in transition. Therefore, the lance is not merely a weapon, it is a catalyst, an initiatory tool that signifies the end of the physical journey and the beginning of spiritual revelation. The location of the piercing is equally significant: the right side of the body, specifically the area around the heart. In all serious spiritual traditions, the heart is regarded as the center of the soul, the throne of divine consciousness, the point of connection between the human and the eternal. To wound the heart is, therefore, more than just a lethal act. It is a symbolic gesture of openness. The heart of Jesus is opened so that we can glimpse its depths, allowing us to see, with the eyes of the soul, what it truly means to live with absolute love, total surrender, and unconditional compassion. In esoteric tradition, the right side of the body is linked to higher reasoning, spiritual action, and the sacred masculine. It represents the divine will at work in the world. Thus, the piercing of the right side can be interpreted as a sign that Jesus' surrender was not merely emotional, but profoundly conscious. He was not forced onto the cross. He chose to offer himself, and when he was wounded in the side of his heart, what is revealed is the fullness of his surrender. It's not just blood that flows there. It unveils the alchemical essence of a being who lived in unity. This piercing also resonates with a very ancient archetype, that of the pierced heart. In Eastern traditions, we encounter similar symbols where the vital center is touched by celestial forces or earthly challenges to ignite transformation. In Sufism, for instance, the heart must be broken for God to dwell within it fully. Therefore, the open heart of Jesus is not a symbol of defeat, but of completeness. Love wasn't wounded, it was set free. It was laid bare, it was expressed without reservation. The soldier's spear, later known in Christian tradition as Longinus, is not merely a tool of death. It also marks a turning point for the one who wields it. According to tradition, upon witnessing the blood flowing from Christ's body, Longinus was deeply moved and converted to the message he had previously overlooked. This serves as yet another indication of the initiatory significance of the act. Those who strike Christ with sincerity who dare to engage with the mystery honestly, ultimately find themselves transformed by it. The spear inflicts a wound, but it also awakens. In this sense, the image of Jesus with his side pierced is not one of passive martyrdom, but rather an active revelation. It's as if he's saying, "Look, even the heart can be pierced, and yet what flows from it is love. Not hatred, not resentment, not denial, but surrender, compassion, and transformation." This is the hallmark of a true initiate. When wounded, he offers light. When torn apart, he shares his essence. When faced with death, he overflows with life. There is still a connection to ancient Eastern traditions, where masters, upon reaching a state of realization, would display signs in their physical bodies. Points of light, energy openings, symbols in their heart centers. The piercing of Jesus' heart can be understood in this context. It represents a definitive opening of the spiritual channel between heaven and earth. The blood and water do not flow to signify suffering. They flow to proclaim union, the integration of spirit with matter, the affirmation of the sacred embodied. And when we look at this image with our inner eyes, it transforms into a mirror, because often within us, it's necessary for the heart to be touched, wounded, and opened, so that we can let the truth flow. It's no coincidence that many spiritual awakenings occur after profound suffering. Pain isn't the path, but it often serves as a portal. The spear that pierces us can take the form of loss, crisis, or deconstruction. Yet, if we allow it, it will also unveil the purest aspects of our being. Christ did not resist the spear, he embraced it. In doing so, he transformed an act of violence into a gesture of revelation. This is one of the greatest secrets of spiritual alchemy, the ability to turn what wounds us into instruments of light. What seems like an end becomes a passage. What was pain transforms into wisdom. And what was blood becomes a symbol of eternity. The wounded heart becomes an altar, and the body in agony becomes a temple. May this perspective help us to view our own wounds with greater reverence, not as punishments, but as chances for growth, as opportunities to reconnect with what truly matters. For it is in the moments when everything seems lost that the secret is unveiled, and even when the heart is bleeding, it begins to shine. Since ancient times, blood has been regarded as something far beyond just a bodily fluid. For our ancestors, it symbolized life in its purest and most intense form. Blood carried the soul, the heritage, the very essence of a being. Therefore, to sacrifice or spill it held profound spiritual implications. Blood has always been a sacred mystery, and in Jesus, it becomes the ultimate vessel of divine transformation. He doesn't merely die with blood in his body. He offers it, he pours it out, and in doing so, he redefines the meaning of pain, surrender, and human spirituality. In ancient rituals, whether in Israel, Egypt, Greece, or among various indigenous civilizations, blood was used as an offering. This wasn't an act of cruelty, but rather a recognition of the life that it represented. For many cultures, the spilling of blood was a way to reconnect with the divine. However, it was always something external. A lamb, a sacred animal, a symbolic sacrifice. With Christ, this dynamic shifts. He is indeed the Lamb, but with full awareness. He is not offered by others. He offers himself, and this distinction changes everything. When he surrenders, Jesus transforms blood into word, into verb, into a bridge between heaven and earth. He doesn't merely spill a vital fluid. He emanates a frequency, the frequency of total surrender, of love in its most absolute form. And that is precisely what makes him Christ-like. His blood no longer symbolizes just biological life. It embodies the essence of the spirit in flesh. It's as if his very body is a chalice, and his blood is the sacred wine of the transmutation of human consciousness. In the language of alchemy, Blood symbolizes the liquid sun, a metaphor for the spiritual light embedded in matter. When this blood is transmuted, there is no longer a separation between spirit and body. They become one. This is why Christ's blood is not merely spilled. It is consecrated. It transforms into a symbol of a new covenant, a new consciousness. "This is the cup of my blood, the blood of the new alliance," he would say at the Last Supper. It's not just a symbol, it's a calling. Many masters of the esoteric tradition have claimed throughout the centuries that blood is also a language. It carries not just oxygen, but also information, energy, and frequency. This is why, from a spiritual perspective, the blood of an enlightened being holds the memory of the divine within it. It is the living substance of divine presence, matter infused with light. When Christ bleeds, he doesn't lose energy. He radiates it. Blood doesn't diminish. It sanctifies. It seals. It liberates. It transforms. This is why the blood of Christ is regarded in mystical tradition as a sacred substance that transcends time. It doesn't dry up. It endures. It resonates beyond history, beyond the cross, beyond death. In the visions of medieval mystics, Christ's blood was often described as translucent red, as if it had transformed into something that no longer belonged to this world. It exists in a realm between the physical and the ethereal, a spiritual plasma, an elixir. In the symbolism of the Grail, the chalice that collected Christ's blood is more than just a cup. It represents the human heart, capable of receiving and holding the essence of the inner Christ. The blood symbolizes the substance that fills this chalice, not in a literal sense, but with awareness. Thus, every time a soul awakens to unconditional love, to complete surrender, and to the voluntary sacrifice of the illusion of the ego, it also becomes a grail, a vessel of Christ's blood, a temple of light. But it's important to remember, blood alone does not save. What saves is what it represents, the awareness behind the act, the commitment that made it possible. The blood of Jesus is not a magical talisman. It is a revelation. It is proof that the divine can be fully experienced in the material world, that the spirit is not separate from suffering, but capable of moving through it and transforming it. Therefore, blood is the living testament of a covenant between humanity and its divine origin. And that's why he becomes the focal point of the process of transformation. He embodies the matter that, when surrendered, becomes spirit, the flesh that, upon death, transforms into word, the self that, when dissolved, becomes unity. It's no coincidence that mystics referred to blood as the secret river of the soul, a river that flows within us and, when awakened, reconnects us with our origins, with the eternal pulse that resides within us. When we look at the blood of Jesus in this light, we stop seeing it with pity or horror. Instead, we begin to see it with reverence and gratitude. It's not a sign of an unjust death. It's a mark of inner liberation. It signifies the end of an old cycle and the beginning of a new path. A path of awareness, compassion, and integration. A path where even blood transcends its physical form. It becomes a symbol. It transforms into alchemy. It shines as light. And that's why even today, so many seek to live with a Christ-like spirit, not as a mystical inheritance, but as a conscious choice, to bleed with love, to surrender without resistance, to treat every action as an offering, every breath as a communion, because ultimately, the blood of Christ isn't confined to the past. It flows now, in every gesture born of true love, in every being that chooses to transcend. Water is one of the earliest universal symbols of creation. In nearly every spiritual tradition, it represents the beginning, the cosmic womb, the primordial substance from which everything emerges. It is fluid, silent, and adaptable, yet also profoundly powerful. When it flows from Jesus' side alongside his blood at the end of his earthly journey, it is not merely a physiological detail. It emerges as a call, a sign, an invitation to deep purification, a reminder of our essence, and a pathway to spiritual rebirth. In Hebrew tradition, water is linked to ritual purity. Jesus' baptism in the waters of the Jordan by John the Baptist is not merely a decorative act. It serves as a rite of passage, preparation, and consecration. It is in these waters that Christ publicly reveals himself as the bearer of a new consciousness. Water also signifies the conclusion of his earthly mission. The first and last significant moments of his journey are both intertwined with water, and this is no coincidence. It symbolizes a complete cycle, from descent into the world to a return to the source. When we think of water as a spiritual symbol, we encounter three main dimensions: cleansing, memory, fluidity. Water purifies because it dissolves. It doesn't destroy with force. Instead, it transforms gently. It invites us to let go, to release what burdens us, and to wash away impurities not just from the body, but from the soul. Thus, when water flows from the side of Christ, it not only reveals what lies within him, it offers a quiet purification to all who approach with reverence. But there's more. Modern studies on water, such as those conducted by scientist Masaru Emoto, suggest that water has the ability to store information. It can capture frequencies, intentions, and emotions. This implies that, in a symbolic sense, water is also a form of memory. The water that flows from Jesus is imbued with consciousness, devotion, and absolute love. It carries within it the living memory of everything experienced with spiritual fullness. It is more than just water. It is the encoded essence of Christ's journey. In spiritual alchemy, water symbolizes the process of dissolution. It's the stage where the ego begins to dissolve, and the rigid structures of personality break down, making way for the new. This water isn't literal. It represents the internal energy that allows us to flow, cry, feel, and heal. When Jesus pours out water at the moment of his death, he is conveying through his body that resurrection cannot happen without this surrender. It's essential to dissolve in order to be reborn. True spirituality doesn't harden us, it softens us. Water is also the element most closely associated with the divine feminine. In many cultures, it embodies the mother, representing receptivity and mystery. While blood can be seen as the fire of life, water serves as the womb where new life takes shape. It is both a vessel and a channel. Therefore, the presence of water in the body of the dying Christ symbolizes a reconciliation of opposites. The active masculine and the nurturing feminine come together. The cross, once a symbol of torture, transforms into an altar of sacred union. This water, therefore, has the power to touch those who perceive it with sensitivity, not just through faith, but through awareness. It represents the final baptism, not one administered by human hands, but by the Spirit itself. This baptism doesn't occur at the beginning of life, like that of children. It takes place at the end of the cycle, serving as a seal of transformation. It's as if Christ is saying, "Now that everything has been given and experienced, I leave you this water, to remind you of who you are and who you have always been." For many mystics, this water also symbolizes the tears of the soul. It represents the moment when a person, facing their own darkness with honesty and humility, allows themselves to weep, not out of despair, but from a place of clarity. These are tears that wash away the veil of illusion, lifting the burdens of the past and granting freedom. In this sense, this Christ-like water signifies that even in death, there is healing. Even at the end, there is light. Even in pain, there is redemption. There's also a hidden aspect. In certain esoteric traditions, water is seen as the medium that connects dimensions. It's a veil between worlds, a mirror reflecting what lies in the unconscious. When it flows from the body of Jesus, it serves as a bridge between the visible and the invisible, between the material world and the realm of the spirit. It signifies that the visible reality has been shattered, allowing access to something greater. The water that flows is the veil being torn apart, the threshold crossed. This water also reminds us that the spiritual journey isn't solely about fire and action. It's also about surrender and contemplation. It's about allowing ourselves to be fluid. Sometimes, the greatest transformation occurs not through struggle, but through courageous surrender, when we let ourselves be washed over, moved, and softened by something greater than ourselves. Christ exemplifies this by not resisting, not hardening, but simply letting the water flow, even at the end. And perhaps that's why the image of the open heart from which blood and water flow remains so vivid in the collective unconscious. It speaks directly to the soul. It reminds us that there is beauty in simplicity, that there is light in surrender, and that there is power in fluidity. The blood symbolizes the sacred fire. The water represents the purified soul. Together, they invite us to embrace a new state of being, lighter, deeper, and more authentic. This water hasn't dried up. It still flows, silently, within each person who seeks, within each one who cries with sincerity, within each one who allows themselves to be touched by the mystery. Because this water didn't come from the body, it came from the Spirit. Calvary was not merely the site of an execution. It was a living laboratory, an invisible altar where spiritual forces operated with surgical precision, turning pain into light, the body into action, and death into rebirth. At its core, the crucifixion of Jesus is a complete alchemical process, where every element, every gesture, and every suffering plays a role in the transformation of consciousness. In this context, the physical body of Christ becomes the sacred furnace, where matter is purified by the fire of surrender and the breath of the Spirit. In traditional alchemy, the transformation of raw matter into spiritual gold unfolds through several stages: nigredo, albedo, citrinitas, and rubedo. These are symbolic phases representing decomposition, purification, illumination, and ultimately, realization. Christ experiences all these stages during his passion. The nigredo, the initial darkness, manifests in abandonment, betrayal, and the silent suffering in Gethsemane. The soul plunges into the deepest shadows. The dark night begins, and he does not flee. He remains. The phase of albedo, of purification, emerges in the scourging, in the exposure, on the path to the cross. It's the moment when the flesh is wounded, yet the soul reveals itself. This is where the ego dissolves, and the spirit begins to rise. There is no resistance, only deep acceptance. It's like someone who understands they must pass through the flames to become their true essence. Citrinitas, the illumination, manifests at the moment when, even on the cross, Jesus speaks of forgiveness, embraces the thief, entrusts his mother, and places his faith in the unseen. He is no longer just a man. He is no longer bound by the self. He begins to shine. And finally, the blush, the golden red of fulfillment, emerges at the moment of death. And soon after, in resurrection, the blood and water flowing from his side are the final traces of matter transforming. The flesh has been entirely consumed by light. The soul is now a verb. The spirit is free. The philosopher's stone, sought by so many external alchemists, reveals itself here. It is the human being transfigured into light, through the path of absolute love. This alchemy is not merely symbolic, it is vibrational. It resonates with deep layers of the collective unconscious. By embracing the cross, Christ transforms a tool of torture into a universal symbol of elevation. What was once ruin becomes a bridge. What was an end transforms into a beginning. The body, once a site of pain, now becomes a vessel of revelation. This is why the deepest aspects of Christian spirituality have never shied away from the body. It has sanctified it. The Spirit incarnated not to escape matter, but to redeem it. On Calvary, the cross serves as the crucible, the vessel where matter is heated until its impurities dissolve. The fire is not external, it is internal. It is the fire of consciousness, of radical surrender. of love that consumes everything false. This is the transformative fire. Jesus did not become the Christ through suffering alone, but through loving even in the midst of suffering. This is the true flame that transmutes, the choice to love, when everything around us seems to cry out for the opposite. It's no coincidence that he dies between two thieves. One rejects him, while the other acknowledges him. One embodies the stubbornness of the ego, the other represents the surrender of the soul. And in between them stands Christ, the cornerstone, the synthesis, the presence that reveals that salvation isn't found in the life we've lived, but in the choices we make in the moment, in the here and now. The crucifixion thus becomes a mirror. We are constantly faced with the choice to resist or to surrender, to harden or to transform, to deny or to love. In the final moments of Jesus, his body begins to show signs of transfiguration. Darkness envelops the sky, the temple veil tears apart, the earth shakes. These phenomena are not mere external descriptions. They reflect an internal transformation that resonates throughout everything. The microcosm of his sacred body aligns with the macrocosm of creation. The universe responds, because when a being is fully illuminated, everything around them is restructured. This is the key that alchemists sought. The philosopher's stone was not an object, but a state of being. It represents a human being in full spiritual realization, someone who engages with the material world without denying it and sanctifies it through their presence. Christ embodies this state perfectly. His cross is the furnace, his body the vessel, and his blood and water the fruits of the great work. He doesn't just speak of transformation, he lives it, embodies it, and brings it to fruition. And that's why there is no pain that cannot be redeemed, no shadow that cannot be transformed. The alchemy of Calvary is not a thing of the past. It lives on in every person who surrenders to the fire of the Spirit, those who embrace their cross not as punishment, but as a path, who see in their wounds not ruins, but gateways. Each of us is called to be a furnace, allowing the old to burn away, the false to dissolve, and the true to emerge. The Passion of Christ is not merely a spectacle of suffering. It is a profound initiation, a call for each of us to undergo our own alchemical transformation, not to become martyrs, but to embrace our true selves, to embody the light that we inherently are, to make our bodies a temple, our pain an offering, our lives a work of spiritual art, because the cross is not the end, it is the beginning of true transmutation. The cross, in its simplest form, is the intersection of two lines, one vertical and one horizontal. It symbolizes the meeting point between heaven and earth, spirit and matter, time and eternity. However, when placed at the heart of the Christic mystery, it transcends its geometric shape. The cross becomes a balancing point between opposites, the center where all forces converge and harmonize. In the context of spiritual alchemy, it embodies the integration of the four fundamental elements: earth, water, fire, and air, the pillars of creation and the steps toward inner transformation. The horizontal line of the cross symbolizes the visible world, the realm of human experiences, emotions, and dualities. It's the space where life unfolds with its polarities, light and shadow, masculine and feminine, birth and death. In contrast, the vertical line represents the axis of the spirit, the channel connecting the divine and the human, the heights and the depths. The crucified Christ at the center of this cross is not merely a body nailed to wood. He embodies the living union of these worlds. He is the point where the cross transforms into a portal. In alchemical tradition, the four elements are more than just physical substances. They embody states of consciousness and stages in the journey of enlightenment. Earth symbolizes the body, stability, and foundation. Water represents emotions, fluidity, and purification. Air signifies the mind, communication, and the breath of life. Fire embodies the spirit, will, and transformation. In his passion, Jesus experiences each of these elements archetypically, sanctifying them as integral parts of a holistic path toward integration. The earth is embodied in the cross itself. Wood driven into the ground, bearing the weight of the body. It is the substance that supports the process, anchoring the spirit in reality. It represents Jesus' physical body, enduring the ultimate limit of pain. Yet, it also signifies the steadfast presence of one who chose to be there, who did not flee, who endured until the end. The earth serves as the altar of incarnation. And there, at the summit of Golgotha, it receives the seed of a new consciousness. Water emerges at the moment of the spear, flowing from the open side, as we've already seen. But it also symbolically represents tears, sweat, and emotional surrender. Water cleanses, dilutes, and reveals. It embodies compassion and self-giving. And on the cross, Jesus doesn't harden. He flows. He weeps. He loves. He forgives. Water is the heart that opens, even in suffering. It is the soul that allows itself to be touched. It signifies ultimate purification. The air is present in every word spoken by Jesus before his death, in each labored breath. In his final gasp, it's the word manifesting, even in agony. It's the Spirit that continues to speak, teach, and heal, even when the body no longer responds. Father, forgive them. Today you will be with me in paradise. It is finished. The air is the breath that connects the word to the world. It's the vibration of the Spirit amidst the chaos. It's the sound that transcends time. And fire, the most subtle of elements, exists in the unseen, in the fervor of consciousness, in the flame that never extinguishes. Fire is found in the radical choice to love until the end, to remain true to one's purpose, even in the face of death. It is the fire of presence, clarity, and transformation, the fire that consumes all illusion, leaving only the gold of essence, the fire of the Spirit that burns without consuming, purifying without destroying. The cross, therefore, is not an accident. It is a sacred structure, a symbol that encompasses all elements of creation and every facet of existence. It serves as the matrix of integration. When Christ surrendered himself to it, he sanctified that integration. He became the center of the alchemical mandala, the point where everything converges. Here, there is no more separation. Pain transforms from mere suffering into a fusion of energy. The world shifts from being merely matter to becoming an expression of the Spirit. And that's why the cross shouldn't be seen merely as a symbol of suffering. Instead, it should be viewed as a map for inner fulfillment. Each of us carries within our subtle essence a cross. It's the intersection of earthly experience and spiritual aspiration. It represents who we are and who we can become. It lies between limitation and eternity. Our true spiritual journey is, at its core, the process of learning to inhabit this center, of embodying the cross, by integrating the opposites within ourselves. Christ shows us that this is possible, that we can inhabit our bodies without getting lost in materialism, that we can feel deeply without being enslaved by our emotions, that we can think clearly without becoming paralyzed by reason, and that we can be ignited by the fire of the Spirit without being consumed by pride. To bear the cross is to be fully human, where all elements harmonize under the light of consciousness. The cross also points to the four cardinal directions. It opens up to the world, embracing all directions. It does not exclude, divide, or favor. It welcomes. It is both an invitation and a path. And at its center, where all the lines converge, is Christ, not as an external figure, but as an internal principle. The point of unity, the silent presence that observes everything and remains unfazed by anything. And perhaps deep down, that's what the cross seeks to teach us. That suffering isn't the end, that matter isn't a prison, and that the Spirit isn't distant. It's at the core of our being. This center isn't external, it's within us. It's in that space where extremes fade away, where the ego quiets down, and where truth resonates. Christ didn't come to take us away from the cross. He came to teach us how to embrace it with awareness. Because it is there, right there, at the crossroads of heaven and earth, between pain and grace, between blood and water, that the soul discovers its true alchemy. Behind the veils of the official narrative lies a silent lineage that, since ancient times, has preserved the knowledge of the deepest spiritual mysteries. This lineage, made up of initiates, mystics, alchemists, and seekers of the unseen, has always understood that Christ is not merely a historical figure, but a living archetype, an active presence in the heart of humanity. For these initiates, the Christic Blood is not just a symbol of the Savior's death, but a vibrational seal of awakened consciousness, accessible to those who walk truthfully along the path of self-discovery. In esoteric tradition, blood is more than just a fluid. It carries spiritual memory. It records emotions, choices, and intentions, resonating with the internal state of the being. When a figure like Christ consciously and lovingly sheds his blood, that substance becomes infused with the light of total surrender. It transforms into a field of cosmic information, a spiritual frequency capable of activating profound inner awakening in those who connect with it. This is why the blood of Jesus becomes, for the initiated, a living code of transformation. The ancient mystery schools understood that the process of crucifixion was a sacred dramatization of the mysteries of inner transformation. It's no coincidence that the Egyptian, Greek, Persian, and Hindu mysteries spoke of the God-man who dies and is reborn, who sacrifices himself to illuminate the path, and who pours out his essence to nurture the awakening of others. In these traditions, blood has always been a key, not as something to be literally worshipped, but as a metaphor for what must be shed internally: the ego, pride, attachments, and false identity. In esoteric Christianity, this perspective deepens. Jesus becomes the ultimate example of solar initiation. He embodies the Logos, the divine word, and through his passion, he reflects the complete cycle of the great spiritual work. His blood, then, serves as the ink with which this cycle is inscribed in the body of humanity, not to be idolized, but to be understood, assimilated, and above all, experienced. For the true follower of Christ is one who also allows themselves to bleed, not physically, but spiritually, letting go of everything that separates them from their essence. This symbolic language can be found in texts such as the apocryphal Gospels, Gnostic writings, and Hermetic traditions. The Gnostics, for instance, viewed Christ as an inner principle, the inner Christ, that resides within every slumbering human being. To awaken this inner presence, one must let go of the world of illusion. In this perspective, blood symbolizes the vital force that should be dedicated to the spirit, rather than squandered on fleeting desires. It represents the mark of true initiation, which demands total commitment, inner faith, and profound silence. The Holy Grail, the ultimate symbol of spiritual quest, is also, according to many esoteric traditions, the vessel that collected this blood. However, the chalice isn't necessarily a physical object. It represents the purified human heart, the inner vessel that, after enduring trials, becomes capable of holding Christ's light. The Grail symbolizes the initiate who, having bled internally, has emptied themselves to be filled by the Spirit. The blood they gather is a testament to this union. It is the sacrament of awakened consciousness. In medieval hidden texts, Christ's blood was described as an ethereal substance, a scarlet fluid with a golden sheen that did not belong to this dimension. It represented the essence of the free soul, the condensed divine essence. Alchemists linked it to the philosophical mercury, the universal vital principle that, when transmuted, produces the elixir of immortality. Not physical immortality, but the enduring presence of consciousness beyond time. Thus, Christ's blood became a symbol of that which, when spilled, transforms into the eternal. The initiated have always understood this blood cannot be bought, inherited, or received from outside. It is activated from within. Every human being who confronts their shadows and surrenders to their own internal crucifixion, symbolically speaking, also spills this blood, The purer the surrender, the more vibrant the frequency. In this way, the Christic blood becomes an internal reality, a vibrational substance that fills the being and aligns it with the divine source. There are records in both Eastern and Western mystical traditions of masters who, upon reaching a high level of enlightenment, emanated a gentle fragrance, a soft light, or even a subtle liquid from their bodies. Symbolic manifestations of the same spiritual essence that in the West has been linked to the blood of Christ. This reinforces the notion that Christ's blood is not the exclusive domain of one religion, but rather a universal expression of an elevated state of consciousness. And here's the big secret. The Christic blood is proof that the divine can dwell within the body. That matter can be sanctified, that a human being can indeed become a temple of the Spirit, not through merit, but through surrender, not through external effort, but through internal yielding. Those who carry this blood flowing in their soul don't need to say much. Their presence transforms, their gaze heals, their breath uplifts, because they have become the Grail. They have become the cross. They have become the incarnate Word. Therefore, the initiated do not worship suffering. They worship transformation. They understand that each drop of that blood does not cry out for vengeance, but for awareness. It does not demand adoration, but inner action. And that's why the secret of Christ's blood is not found on altars. It resides within the soul, in that sacred space where the ego falls silent and the Spirit begins to speak. When Christ takes his final breath, something occurs that transcends all rational understanding. To the ordinary eye, it marks the end of a life, but to the awakened perspective, it signifies the beginning of a new state of being. The death on the cross is not a defeat, it is a culmination. It is the moment when the process of transformation reaches its peak. The physical body falls silent, yet consciousness expands. The blood and water have already been shed, the ego has been dissolved, and matter has been purified. Now, what remains is the invisible, the mystery that only reveals itself when all that is external comes to a halt. In the deepest spiritual traditions, death has never been viewed as an end. It is a rite of passage, a crossing between dimensions, a sacred portal that separates illusion from truth. In the case of Christ, this crossing is not an escape, but a choice. He himself said, "No one takes my life, I lay it down." These words are not merely poetic. They are alchemical. They reveal that true resurrection is not an external miracle, but the result of a complete inner surrender. Christ did not evade death. He embraced it. What happens on the other side is truly revealing. The Gospels state that on the third day, he rises again. However, this resurrection isn't just a return to his former body. It's the emergence of a new one, a body of light, a body that moves between worlds, appearing and disappearing, speaking of peace, and resonating at a different frequency. This body is the manifestation of a transformed consciousness. It is no longer bound by the ordinary laws of the flesh. It is the result of a complete alchemy, a fusion of matter and spirit, where there is no longer any separation. This is the true meaning of the final transmutation. Christ doesn't return to be who he once was. He returns to reveal who we become when we let go of what we are not. The cross, the spear, the blood, and the water were merely steps along the way. Now, the outcome is clear: solar consciousness, the presence that radiates absolute love, the flame that no death can extinguish, the life that doesn't rely on the body, but instead manifests through it when the body becomes transparent to the spirit. It's no coincidence that when Jesus rises from the dead, he first appears to Mary Magdalene, the one who loved him with her soul, not just her mind. She was the one whose heart had already been prepared to recognize Christ beyond physical form. The resurrected Jesus cannot be seen with worldly eyes, but rather with the eyes of the Spirit. This is why many do not recognize him right away. They expect to see the old body, the familiar face, the previous identity. However, Resurrection calls for a new way of seeing, a vision that can perceive the light hidden beneath the veil of matter. The mystical tradition views resurrection as a state of consciousness attainable by every human being who undergoes the internal stages of symbolic crucifixion. It's not about escaping literal death, but about living in such a way that when we do die, something greater is reborn within us. That something is our true self, our deep essence. The divine spark that, once freed, can never again be lost in the illusions of the world. The blood and water seal this process, and resurrection affirms it. Here lies one of the most profound revelations. The risen Christ no longer bears pain, yet he still carries the marks. The wounds remain visible, but they are no longer open sores. They are sacred seals. They testify that pain has been endured and transformed. This teaches us that true healing doesn't erase history, it sanctifies it. The scars of Christ are not signs of weakness. They are medals of a soul awakened. They are the records of light's victory over darkness. This image deeply resonates with esoteric traditions that speak of the body of glory, the subtle vehicle that manifests when a person completely transcends the ego, a body that vibrates at a different frequency, one that no longer feeds on matter, but on light, that no longer reacts, but simply emanates. And it exists not as a privilege for the few, but as a potential within all. Because the resurrection of Christ is not a privilege, it is a roadmap, it is a mirror. He went through everything he did not to impress us, but to remind us of who we are, that we are not just flesh, nor just spirit, but the union of both. That death may touch the body, but not the true self. That real life begins when we surrender to our essence. Even if it costs us everything we think we are, resurrection is the result of the courage to die, symbolically, every day, in order to be reborn closer to what is eternal within us. Just as Christ appeared to the disciples on the road, quietly, mysteriously, this new awareness can also reveal itself in our everyday lives, in the simplest gestures, in the deepest silences, in the most genuine encounters. Whenever we choose truth, compassion, forgiveness, silence, and love, something within us is resurrected. Something rises. Something resonates at the frequency that mystics have referred to as Christ-like. This is the final transmutation, when the cross ceases to be a symbol of suffering and transforms into a symbol of transition. When the blood no longer speaks of death, but of a life dedicated. When the water no longer flows to cleanse, but to sow. And when the body finally bows before the soul, and the two become one. The blood and water that flowed from Jesus' side weren't just the conclusion of a story. They marked the beginning of a vibrant possibility within each of us. Christ didn't come to be worshipped from afar. He came to be awakened within our hearts. Thus, the Christ-like blood isn't something to be sought externally. It pulses within us. It symbolizes what occurs when we choose awareness over reaction, love over fear, and surrender over control. Living with Christic blood means living with presence. It's about recognizing that every experience, no matter how challenging it may seem, holds the potential for purification and transformation. It doesn't mean seeking out suffering, but rather embracing life as an initiatory field, a sacred ground where every choice reveals our true selves. In this journey, shedding that blood isn't about dying. It's about living deeply. It's about offering every action, every emotion, and every thought as part of an ongoing alchemy. The cross is no longer just an external symbol. It represents the intersection of our pain and our gifts, of our shadows and our light, of our humanity and our divinity. Living at the center of this cross, with a heart open like Christ's, means allowing both blood and water to flow from it, not literally, but spiritually. In other words, it's about letting compassion and clarity, courage and sensitivity, surrender and wisdom flow from within us. The Christ-like blood within us reveals itself when we stop fighting against life and start dancing with it. When we embrace the inner movement of transformation, when we stop hiding behind the masks of our ego and allow ourselves to be vulnerable, not to be destroyed, but to be unveiled. Because like Christ, we too are pierced in our affections, our beliefs, and our pride. And within those wounds lies hidden gold. That is where the truth resides. Those who walk this journey understand that there is no true spiritual path without traversing the inner Calvary, without finding silence in Gethsemane, without sometimes quietly bearing the weight of our own awakening. But they also know that there is no resurrection without the cross, and that pain is not the enemy of the soul. It is its teacher. Suffering doesn't have to define us. Instead, it can refine us. Often, the purest light emerges from what we believe we cannot endure. Living with Christ's blood means living with an open heart, not in a sense of weakness, but of courage. The courage to love, even when we're not understood. To serve, even when we're not recognized. To persevere, even when everything seems dark. Because Christ's blood doesn't promise us a life without wounds. It offers us sacred wounds, glowing scars, marks that say, I have endured, I have transformed, I have loved. And that changes everything. It frees us from the need to be perfect or invulnerable. Christ didn't transfigure despite his wounds. He transfigured through them. This teaches us that our worth isn't in appearing enlightened, but in embodying the light in our daily lives with authenticity and compassion. It's about recognizing the divine in the small gestures and understanding that every moment can be sacred when lived with an awakened soul. The Christic Blood also calls us to communion, not as an external ritual, but as an inner vibration. When we share our truth, when we listen to others with presence, when we engage with the world with both gentleness and strength. We are participating in this mystery. We are becoming an extension of the Word, a channel of light, a living expression of a consciousness that does not judge, does not demand, but simply is. And the most beautiful part is that this blood no longer needs to be shed. It needs to be lived. It must flow through our actions. It needs to pulse in our choices. It should surge in the moments when we say yes to life, even without guarantees. Because every heartfelt yes is a bit of Christ's blood manifesting in the world. Every act of forgiveness, every moment of silence that spares, every tear that cleanses, every new beginning. This is the true resurrection, when we realize that Christ has never been far away. He never asked for worship, he asked for connection. He showed us a path that indeed goes through the cross, but ultimately leads to the light. It starts with surrender, but blossoms into the quiet glory of an awakened soul. The blood and the water flowed to remind us of this, to call us back home, and to teach us to let go of who we are not, and to embrace who we have always been. And now that this mystery has been explored in depth, it no longer asks for words, it asks for presence, it asks for silence, it asks for the courage to live up to what we have witnessed. Because the Christic Blood doesn't seek explanation, it seeks embodiment. Want to be lived. And now, mind unfettered. Tell me, have you ever felt, at some point in your life, that something within you was being purified, as if a part of who you were was dissolving, to make way for something greater to emerge? Share your deepest experience of transformation in the comments. Because when we share genuinely, we manifest together. And this is the power of the Christ-like blood flowing between us. If you felt the vibe of this message, the next step is just around the corner. The CIA accidentally revealed the rise is real, and a document from 1983 has revealed secrets that could change everything. Go to the next video now and continue your awakening. We'll meet there.